We want the suspect to know that the no snitch policy will never protect you in our community, that we're coming for you, we're looking for you, and we'll leave no stone unturned in trying to find out your whereabouts. But at the end of the day, we want this brother to know we will not rest until you're held accountable for this crime. And this was a wicked crime, and a crime against women, and a crime against humanity.
She was a rising model chasing her dreams until a birthday trip turned into a nightmare. A blood-stained phone, a mysterious man, and a garbage bag deep in the forest would leave a family searching for answers, and a killer on the run. But this story doesn't end there. Across the country, another young woman, a rising influencer, walked into the arms of someone she trusted and never walked out. 2 different lives, 2 different cities, one chilling truth. You can hide, but you cannot outrun justice. This is the story they never wanted you to hear. You're about to hear a story the world must not forget, a story of loss, courage, and an unending fight for justice. If you believe every victim deserves a voice and every killer must be held accountable, hit subscribe now to Viral Crime Stories, because together we make sure the truth is never buried. If you're listening to this and you know you did it, hear me clearly. Your so-called no-snitch policy won't save you. You can change your name, you can change your face, you can cross oceans, but we will find you. It may take days, months, or even years, but time is on our side, not yours. The message came not from the police, but from the people, Felicia Johnson's family friends, and an army of strangers online who refused to let her name fade into another unsolved case file. In their eyes, the case wasn't just about justice. It was about sending a warning to every predator who thinks they can hide behind silence or slip through the cracks in the system. From the moment her face appeared on missing person flyers, the hunt was personal. It wasn't bound by jurisdiction, paperwork, or protocol. This was a manhunt with one fuel rage. Social media feeds became wanted posters, street corners became investigation sites, and every lead, no matter how small, was chased, like it was the only thread holding the truth together. But beneath that determination was a gnawing fear that the trail was already going cold, that Felicia's case might end up like too many others where the suspect is free and the victim is forgotten. Only this time, they weren't going to let that happen. The opening act of Felicia's story begins far from the forest where she was found. It begins with dreams, the kind that make you believe the world is full of possibility. It was a quiet stretch of forest land just outside Houston, the kind of place where the wind moves through the trees and the world feels untouched by time. But on that morning, it became the scene of a nightmare. A maintenance worker clearing brush noticed something out of place. A black plastic bag torn at the corner with something pale showing through. When he stepped closer, the smell hit him first. Then the reality. His call to 911 was short and trembling. Inside the bag was the body of a young woman later confirmed to be Felicia Johnson. The discovery shook the community and sent shockwaves across the country because Felicia had been missing for weeks, and her case had already captured national attention. She had come to Houston to celebrate her 24th birthday, chasing opportunities in modeling and entertainment. But somewhere between the glitter of the city and the dark shadows of the night, her path crossed with someone dangerous. Police quickly secured the area, marking every footprint, every tire track, every clue they could find. But the killer had been careful, and the forest was vast. Still, investigators knew one thing. Whoever left her there thought the remote location would buy them time, but instead, it lit a fire under the search for answers and a hunt for a suspect who was already slipping away. Felicia Johnson was more than a name on a flyer. She was a vibrant young woman from San Diego, California, with a smile that could light up any room and dreams that stretched far beyond her hometown. She loved fashion, the camera, and the idea that with hard work she could make it in the competitive world of modeling. When her 24th birthday approached, she decided to spend it in Houston, Texas, a city buzzing with opportunity and connections. Friends recalled how excited she was packing her outfits and talking about the people she hoped to meet. But on April 13th, 2022, everything went silent. No calls, no messages, no social media posts from Felicia. A red flag to those who knew her best. She had been active online every single day, and now there was nothing. Her family immediately tried to reach her, but calls went straight to voicemail and texts went unanswered. As hours turned into days, their worry grew heavier. The birthday trip that was supposed to mark a new chapter in her life had instead become the beginning of a nightmare that no one could have imagined. The search for Felicia took a grim turn when a private investigator hired by her family made a chilling discovery at Bear Creek Park in Houston. Lying in the grass was her cell phone smeared with what appeared to be blood, and nearby were other personal belongings left behind as if dropped in a hurry. The sight sent shockwaves through her loved ones because it was the first concrete sign that something violent had happened to her. But what frustrated the family even more was the slow response from local authorities. Days had passed since she vanished, and yet there was no sense of urgency, no large-scale search, no public alerts that might have brought in new leads. Her father, Kevin Johnson, voiced his anger openly, saying that valuable time had been wasted and that whoever took his daughter was gaining the advantage with every passing hour. Still, the blood-stained phone was evidence that could not be ignored, and it would soon lead investigators to a man whose name would forever be linked to this tragedy. Investigators soon identified the man last seen with Felicia as 38-year-old Chukwuebuka Nwobodo, a Nigerian national living in Houston. Phone records and surveillance footage placed him at the center of her disappearance, showing that he had picked Felicia up from an apartment complex on the night she vanished. Further digging revealed that Nwobodo had a history of suspicious behavior and a disturbing online trail, including searches about disposing of bodies and removing fingerprints. Police obtained a warrant and searched his apartment, finding traces of blood DNA evidence belonging to Felicia and receipts for supplies that suggested premeditation. Yet despite the mounting evidence, Nwobodo was not in custody by the time the warrant was executed, and it appeared he had already fled. His car was found abandoned at a local shopping center, and his digital footprint went dark. Authorities issued a nationwide alert warning that he was dangerous and possibly armed, but tracking him down would prove far more difficult than anyone expected. As weeks turned into months, frustration grew among Felicia's family, friends, and supporters who felt the system had failed them by allowing a prime suspect to slip away. Vigils were held in Houston and San Diego, with candles, flowers, and posters demanding justice. While social media campaigns kept her name and Nwobodo's face circulating online, Kevin Johnson continued to speak out, warning the suspect directly that no matter how far he ran, he could not hide forever, and urging the public to come forward with any information. Meanwhile, investigators quietly worked behind the scenes, tracking financial records, immigration databases, and tips from across the country, but each lead seemed to fizzle out just as quickly as it appeared. The theory that Nwobodo might have fled the United States gained traction, especially as no activity was detected on his bank accounts or phone lines. Still, the family refused to give up, clinging to the belief that one day, the man they held responsible for Felicia's death would be found and forced to face the consequences. By the time the calendar turned to the next year, the case of Felicia Johnson had become both a haunting mystery and a rallying cry for justice. In Houston, detectives continued piecing together the fragments of her last hours alive. Surveillance footage from multiple locations painted a partial picture of that night, showing Felicia getting into Nwobodo's silver Nissan Sentra before being driven toward his apartment complex. From there, the trail became chillingly precise. Thanks to digital forensics, data from his phone revealed Google searches in the days before and after her disappearance, including how to dispose of a body without getting caught, can bleach destroy DNA, and how to leave the country without a passport. Receipts recovered from his trash showed purchases of large trash bags, gloves, and cleaning supplies bought in quick succession shortly after she was last seen. Neighbors told investigators they noticed him acting nervous and avoiding eye contact in the days following the disappearance. One even recalled hearing what sounded like heavy objects being dragged late at night. When police finally entered his apartment, they found traces of Felicia's blood on the carpet and in the bathroom, along with hair extensions matching hers. Despite the overwhelming evidence, By that point, Nwobodo was gone, and authorities believed he may have had help evading capture, possibly from associates in the Houston area or contacts abroad. For Felicia's family, this was a cruel twist because they knew the man who had taken their daughter's life had been within reach and yet had walked away into the shadows. By the time the calendar turned to the next year, the case of Felicia Johnson had become both a haunting mystery and a rallying cry for justice. In Houston, detectives continued piecing together the fragments of her last hours alive. Surveillance footage from multiple locations painted a partial picture of that night, showing Felicia getting into Nwobodo's silver Nissan Sentra before being driven toward his apartment complex. From there, the trail became chillingly precise thanks to digital forensics. Data from his phone revealed Google searches in the days before and after her disappearance, including how to dispose of a body without getting caught, can bleach destroy DNA, and how to leave the country without a passport. Receipts recovered from his trash showed purchases of large trash bags, gloves, and cleaning supplies bought in quick succession shortly after she was last seen. Neighbors told investigators they noticed him acting nervous and avoiding eye contact in the days following the disappearance. One even recalled hearing what sounded like heavy objects being dragged late at night. When police finally entered his apartment, they found traces of Felicia's blood on the carpet and in the bathroom, along with hair extensions matching hers. Despite the overwhelming evidence, by that point, Nwobodo was gone, and authorities believed he may have had help evading capture, possibly from associates in the Houston area or contacts abroad. For Felicia's family, this was a cruel twist because they knew the man who had taken their daughter's life had been within reach and yet had walked away into the shadows. The manhunt for Chukwuebuka Nwobodo stretched far beyond Houston, becoming a nationwide and eventually international pursuit as tips came in from multiple states and even outside the United States. The FBI joined the search, adding his name and photo to their wanted list and coordinating with border control agencies to monitor airports, seaports, and land crossings. Yet every promising lead seemed to collapse under scrutiny. Either the man spotted was not Nwobodo, or the trail had gone cold by the time agents arrived. Some believed he had fled to Nigeria, using forged travel documents, while others thought he was hiding in plain sight under a new identity somewhere in the United States. Law enforcement publicly warned that he was dangerous and should not be approached, stressing his history of violence and calculated behavior. Back in Houston, Felicia's family continued organizing rallies, vigils, and press conferences to keep her case alive. Refusing to let her name fade from public memory, they pushed for stronger laws to ensure suspects in violent crimes could not simply disappear before facing trial, and their persistence began to attract attention from national news outlets and advocacy groups for missing persons. Still, for all the media coverage and public support, there was an unshakable truth that haunted every gathering, every interview, every sleepless night. For Kevin Johnson and his family, Felicia's killer was still out there breathing free while they were left with memories, grief, and a relentless search for justice. As the months dragged on without an arrest, the emotional toll on Felicia's family was impossible to ignore. Kevin Johnson, her father, became the face and voice of the fight for justice, speaking at every vigil and media appearance with a mix of grief and defiance. He often held up her smiling photographs in front of the cameras, reminding the world that Felicia was not just a victim, but a daughter, a sister, and a friend whose life had been stolen. He addressed Nwobodo directly in interviews, saying, "You can run, you can hide, but you will never be free, because we will never stop looking for you." Behind the scenes, Kevin spent countless hours calling detectives, emailing tips, and meeting with advocacy groups to push the investigation forward. The family's home became a hub of activity, filled with stacks of case files, maps, and contact lists. Social media pages dedicated to Felicia's story grew into online communities sharing updates, analyzing possible sightings, and pressuring law enforcement to act. But the weight of the unanswered questions was crushing. Every time the phone rang, their hearts raced, wondering if it was the call that would finally say he had been found, and every time it wasn't, they felt the pain all over again. For them, The fight was no longer just about justice for Felicia. It was about proving that her life mattered, and that no killer, no matter how careful, could truly vanish without consequence. By the time the case reached its second year, the search for Chukwuebuka Nwobodo had taken on a life of its own, with law enforcement still working quietly but steadily behind the scenes, while the public's attention came in waves, driven by new vigils, breaking news segments, or social media pushes. Investigators continued to comb through financial transactions, immigration records, and online activity, hoping to find even the smallest crack that could reveal his location. They re-interviewed witnesses, double-checked security footage from the days around Felicia's disappearance, and maintained contact with international agencies in case he had managed to slip overseas. There were moments of hope, like when an anonymous tip claimed he had been seen in another state, or when an unconfirmed sighting was reported in West Africa. But each time those leads fizzled, leaving more frustration in their wake. Still, Kevin Johnson and his supporters refused to let the case fade, gathering each year on Felicia's birthday and the anniversary of her disappearance to honor her memory and remind the world that the man accused of taking her life was still out there. News outlets occasionally revisited the case, bringing fresh eyes to the story and keeping pressure on authorities. For the family, the years had not dulled the pain they still lived each day, with the ache of her absence and the knowledge that justice had yet to be served, but they carried on with a stubborn determination, believing that sooner or later the call would come and the chase would finally be over. Felicia Johnson's story is more than a case file. It is a wound that remains open for her family and a warning about the fragility of life and the cracks in the system meant to protect it. Her laughter, the plans she made, the dreams she chased, they all live now only in photographs, videos, and the memories of those who loved her. For Kevin Johnson, every day without answers is another battle, another test of strength he never asked for, but refuses to lose. He speaks to her at vigils, looking at the sky, and promising that he will not stop until the man accused of ending her life stands before a judge and faces the truth. Across the country, strangers who never met Felicia carry her story, sharing her face, her name, and her tragedy, so it will never be forgotten. And somewhere out there, a fugitive runs, living with the shadow of his own actions, knowing that time is not on his side, because no matter how far he hides, no matter how many borders he crosses, justice has a way of catching up. This is not the end of Felicia's story, because her family's love is relentless and their fight is unending. One day, the knock will come, the doors will open, and the long wait for justice will finally meet its moment. To follow more real stories like this and stand with victims and their families, subscribe now to Viral Crime Stories channel. Your support keeps these voices alive and this fight in the light.